there, it is Jo from Minerva, and today I am here to do a sew along of the Fringe Dress from Chalk and Notch. Chalk and Notch are an indie pattern house, and I found their patterns to be really reliable with great instructions. And today I'm going to make view B of a dress. I'm going to make it size 16 so you can see some different sizing, and I'm going to make it in a viscose challis. The pattern goes from high bust 30 inches to 54 inches. That's a 0 up to a size 30. There are two views here. View A, which has a button front and a straight neckline, and view B, which has a shaped neckline and the centre front is joined on a seam. There are inseam pockets, so they're really big and roomy pockets, and there's ties that you can add if you want to, so you can make it like a swing dress, or you can have ties either in the sides or inserted into the front waist darts. You can then tie it either at the back, crossed over at the front, and it has a shaped hem, really gradual shaped shirt hem. The sleeves are a wide fit. They've got a little cuff on if you want. You can put the cuff on, you can take the cuff off, and there's also a little sleeve tab if you want to add that too. It's one of those patterns where you can look at the features and pick and switch around the bits that you like. The fabric that I'm using is one of the Minerva exclusive viscose challis. It's called Floral Jungle. It's quite a large print, so if you want to pattern match down that centre front you can, but really it's so busy it just looks great as an all-round vibrant print. It's good to use a fabric with drape on this pattern, so you can use viscose challis, a crepe, cotton lawn, double gauze, cotton voile, and a really light shirting fabric, anything that gathers up really nicely. And if you want more of that drape on the arm, then that's when fabric with a viscose content really works well. The background colour is navy, so I've had a navy thread to sew this up. There's no zips or anything, it just pulls straight over the head. To keep that nice shape on view B around the neckline, I used a light interfacing, and it's important when you choose an interfacing for your fabric that it's about the same weight. So use something super light so that you get still that sort of drape of the challis. It doesn't collapse in on itself, but it doesn't go all stiff. I'm wearing a top. This is from the Sew Over It Ultimate Shift Dress. You wouldn't even know that this view was on the packet. It's one of those things that bugbears me about indie patterns, is they put one photo on the front and actually sometimes there's lots of great options on the back. So this is a frill top from the basic shift block. You can make it as a full length dress or you can make it as a top. This is the border print from Minerva, and I've actually turned the border upside down so that the flowers cascade down. Got a little bit of a pattern placement here, not a pattern match, and the same on the back. That's what I'm wearing, that's what I'm making, that's what I'm making it with, so let's start to sew. Today I've already done my cutting out. It's not part of the video. There was nothing unusual on the cutting out. Everything was on the straight grain. You fold your fabric in half, place your pattern pieces, the back piece goes on the fold, and the skirt pieces are the same for the front and the back. Let's sew. I've cut out with pinking shears today because I don't want to use my overlocker or think about seam finishing. I want that to be my seam finish so that I can press the seams open and they've got the pinking sheared edges. In some places where there's going to be more wear and more pulling on the fabric around the waistline, I'm going to use a zigzag stitch just to hold those layers together. I might also do that around the armhole. The first part of the pattern is to put together the facing unit, so you'll need to go to the right instructions in the booklet because there is a view A instruction for that neckline and view B. First of all, we start with the facing, so you need to apply some interfacing to both pieces. There are guides in the pattern, and you finish the edges. You can turn it or you can overlock them. Then you're going to put the facing unit together, matching up the shoulder seams. There is a 1 centimetre seam allowance here. That's quite critical because you need to do the same on the shoulders so that both pieces match. When you've sewn them, you can press them open so they're nice and flat, and then you're going to turn under with the iron the edges. There's a couple of snips to help you get around those curves, but make sure you don't melt your interfacing. On the front pieces, you'll be needing to make some darts, so you need to make sure that you have start at the wide end and sew out to the narrow end, and you'll also have a bust dart if you choose the larger cup size pattern pieces. This is the front piece. It's got a notch on the shoulder, and you will have marked your dart placements. I've used tailor's tacks today. But before you start, you're going to stay stitch that front edge of your top so that we can hold that nice shape. Once you've done that, you can actually put the darts into the top. Make sure you sew from the wide end up to the narrow end where the dart apex is, and the same on the other side. If you need some more help with sewing up darts, you can check out my other tutorial. If you're doing the CD cup size, you will have a dart on the side as well. And then you can sew the two fronts together. There's an optional tie belt. I'm making mine. I'm going to do it now, then I can decide whether I want to put it inside the darts or whether I want to put it in the side seam. And if you're making the waist tie and you want to put your waist tie inside those darts, then you needed to have done that when you were making your darts. I'm going to put my tie in the side seam, but it depends what your finished look is going to be on your waist. This is the back piece. We also have some darts to put here. Got my tailor's tacks, and I'm going to repeat the same dart process. Press your darts so that everything lies nice and flat, and then we can look at joining the front to the back. With right sides together, match up your shoulder seams. There is a shoulder notch here. Pin that first just to get your positioning, and then go from the arm out to the neck. Press out your shoulder seams, and we can take a look at putting the facing unit onto the front section. Start with the centre front and then look for all the key points. So I'm going to that little corner mark on the collar and then to the shoulders. I'm putting 2 pins there to hold that seam allowance down because I don't want any bulky lumps on the shoulder seam. When you've sewn it, you'll need to do a little bit of fabric handling, so clip the centre front and clip along the curves. Don't go through the stitching obviously, but just if you make some clips and take off the points on the corners, you'll get your facing to turn really nicely. Once you've sewn that on, you can then press up your facing away from your top so that your seam allowance and your facing are touching each other, so that you can understitch. If you want to know more about understitching, you can check out my video on the Minerva YouTube channel. Now that that's held everything down, you'll find that the facing rolls out really nicely. Just make sure you work those points there. So make sure you've got that really nice shape. You won't be able to understitch right into that corner. So just sew as far as you can. The corner will be released and you can push that through with a point turner. We can complete the facing by folding down the folded edge, pinning it in place, and then we're going to top stitch this. When you get to these curved bits here, you'll need those little splits to help you get the fabric to lie down flat, so just take a little bit more care where it's more shaped. And also make sure that you've got those pointed tips out as much as you can, because once you've top stitched down you won't be able to go back in there to adjust that. I'm going to sew from the wrong side, but you can tack it in place and sew from the right side if you prefer. You could have put a label in here on that top stitching stage if that's something that you like to do. But now we're going to head over to the sleeve. We're adding the cuffs flat to the sleeve. I love that technique. And then our top will be complete once we've sewn the side seams. These are the cuff pieces. One edge is notched and one edge isn't. So you're going to add the notched edge to the top, but first of all give them a press. That press line will be useful for when we turn the cuff back later. But we're going to put the cuff right side together with the top opened out flat. So place it on top, match up the edges and sew in place. Once the cuffs are in place, that means we can sew up the side seam. I'm going to put my belt tie in the side seam. That's what I've decided to do. You will have already put your ties in if you had put them inside the darts. I'm going for a side seam placement. Layer out some of that tie so that you can turn it through really easily. It just reduces the bulk and it means there's less fabric trying to bunch inside. I used a tube turner stick, or you could use a full set of tube turner. Make sure the ends are out because that's the finished look at the end of your belt tie. That all needs a really good press and then they're ready to sew into your dress. Match up the side seams. I'm just going to put my belt tie in and I'm going to put it 1 centimetre above the bottom of the bodice. That allows for the joining seam of the skirt and the top. Pin all this in place and sew. I'm going to zigzag the edge of that seam when I finished because there's a little bit of stress caused in that underarm curve. Once the cuffs are on and the side seam is finished, you can then turn up and press up the edge. Use that press line that you made right at the start to help guide you, and your folded edge will cover over the seam allowance. Once they're top stitched down, you'll get a really neat finish along that cuff and you will have enclosed everything on the inside. Top is finished, so now we can take a look at the bottom half of the dress and how to put the skirt together. Now it's time to take a look at the larger skirt pieces. I'm going to put inseam pockets in, so that's the first part of the skirt construction. From the pattern pieces, you'll be marking a couple of notches onto the skirt, and that will correspond with some notches on the edge of the pocket. So you line those up and pin them in place. You'll be putting a pocket on each side and the same on the other piece, and we'll be sewing those in place and under stitching them as well. That helps the pocket all lie flat. Then we can put the two skirt pieces right sides together, match up the hems and the tops of the pockets. And you're going to sew from the waist round the pocket and then down to the hem. If you fancy making French seam pockets here, you can check out my tutorial. It just gives a little more stability to your dress. Once your pocket is complete, you can give it all a press along that side seam. We're getting to that crucial stage now where we join the top to the bottom. So we want to make sure that we get that skirt really evenly gathered and distributed among the top seam line. I've added a row of gathering stitches around the top of my skirt. So that's a seam line that's a long stitch. I've made sure that I've done it in two sections, then I can pull from each end. I've got 2 rows now, and I'm going to pull up the threads and gather the fabric along the threads. Now you need to go gently so that you don't snap your gathering threads. You might not be totally accurate at this point, but you can adjust them when you introduce the top to the bottom. Here's the top, keeping the ties out of the way. I'm going to put the top right sides together with the skirt. I'm looking for some key points to get that shape to fit inside the skirt. So the centre front has a little notch and we can match up the side seams. If you've got areas where it doesn't quite match, then you can readjust your gathers, which is why it's a good idea to gather in 2 rows. When I sew this, I'm going to sew in between those gathering stitches, and people do it in different ways, but I like that sweet spot in there because it's where the fabric is really nicely gathered. Because of the technique that I've used, then I have my lower run of gathering stitches visible on the right side. So I'm just going to go inside and pull that out. It's simple enough to do, but it just means I had that really great spot of gathering. Nearly there now, just time to turn the hem. You can press down the hem once and then a second time to give you a double folded hem, or you could overlock the edge and turn it up once. But you'll be sewing a little bit more carefully around that curved edge. If you want more hemming tips, you can check out this video. Okay, this is it on, so don't use this amount of ease as what you think you might get. I'm size 12, this dress is size 16, but even so, it's totally wearable because of the belt. So I've took it round and brought it to the front so you can tie it at the front. I put my straps in the side so I could just tie it at the back. The shoulder fit is still okay. The neck doesn't come down too low. You get that lovely shape neck on view B. On view A, it comes straight down with the button front. I guess you could leave the ties off altogether and just have an easy swing fit dress with just that interesting neckline. And it has that shaped hem. but it works really well in a viscose challis because you get that sort of drape and lovely gathering here. Don't forget, a pattern is just a template for you to play around with, so you can change some of the sizing if you want to, or you can change some of the style features. For this pattern, you can switch it up by using a different fabric for the top and the bottom. So this real seaside inspired fringe dress looks superb. It's got the navy and white on the bottom and the seaside theme fabric on the top. You can make the ties so that when they tie at the front, they tie the two fabrics together. It's a great way to stash bust some fabric. You don't have to use the little skinny tie. You can leave the ties off altogether, and you can style your fringe dress with a wide belt, maybe an elasticated belt with a buckle on it, or your favourite belt really, but anything that cinches the waist in, it will give it a really different silhouette. If you wear it without the belt, you'll get a really different style dress. This version here by Jessica is made in a really light cotton, and she's tied it like I did, where you won't go to the back crossover and you have the little tie at the front, but you can have the tie at the front or the back. You can do a few hem hacks. So in this version, which is made of double gauze, then this has been tiered. So maybe if you've got a pattern with some tier measurements on, so maybe if you've got the Lyra dress, for example, you can use the measurements that calculate a sort of double frill or a quarter frill and add those to the bottom of your dress if you like that style. If the shirt hem style isn't your thing, then you can actually square off the pattern pieces and cut it as a straight hem. You can make it even longer, so you could make it to the floor with side splits if you wanted to make it like a maxi dress. So there's lots and lots of different ways you can customize the dress to your style. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed today, and maybe the fringe dress will be in your sewing queue. It's a great dress for moving your skills up. You can take some of the features out, or you can build on something that you've not done before, maybe some gathering or adding inseam pockets. If you've been frightened of a buttonhole all that time, then maybe you could try View A. We would love to see what you have been making generally. So if you've got a project on the go or you've just finished something, then we would love to see it over on our website. You can make a free account, share your makes and inspire other Minerva makers. And you can also join the craft club, where you will receive discounts and offers throughout the year. We would also love to see you here, so at the Minerva YouTube channel or over on our feed, you can check out our tutorials. There are sew-alongs where we sew a garment from beginning to end, like today, some learn to sew tutorials where you get a little snippet or skill, and there's also lots of inspirational chit-chat from Vicky on new pattern releases and new fabrics. Well, do call again soon. Bye.